Alright, what's going on guys? My name is Jordan and welcome back to my channel. So in this video I'm going to show you guys my immersed plant grow setup, and I'm going to redo this one. So I'm going to bring you guys step by step on how I set one of these things up and a little bit more on why I set these things up. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. Let's get into it. Alright, first things first, what exactly does it mean to be growing plants immersed? Well, simply put, it just means growing plants outside of water. And there's a few reasons why I choose to do this. First thing is that the plants actually grow faster, and that is because they have unlimited access to the ambient CO2 that's in the air. Secondly, you can only have so many aquariums set up, and so I personally like to grow as many plants as I can, and so having plants growing in a tub outside of the aquarium is low maintenance for me, and it also allows me to grow more plants so that if I ever choose to set up an aquarium in the future, I have a lot of plants to select from. And it just keeps the amount of plants that I'm able to access higher, so that you have more success when you're setting up an aquarium in the future, because you can fill it with plants right from the start. And I find it helps a little bit with algae control and other things like that. Another reason why people like to grow plants immersed is simply because it's, like I mentioned, it's low maintenance and low cost, so that you can actually grow plants and sell them and make a little bit of a profit for that to help cover some of the other expenses from the aquarium hobby. So for me, this immersed tub started out when I was making the aquarium that's sitting behind me. I had a few extra clippings, a few extra Nubius plants, and things like that, and I decided they didn't work in the aquarium because it was filled enough with the plants, but I didn't want to throw them out or sell them, so I decided to just set this up quickly and see what happens. And you know, as you can see, the plants definitely took off, and this has just been sitting in front of my window here throughout the winter. There was no extra heating or extra light that was given to them, and everything seemed to do pretty well, as you can see. So my goal for today is to take down this one, and I want to reset it up and actually add some dividers and stuff, because some of the plants, such as dwarf hairgrass, the baby tears, are just spreading like crazy, and I want to keep that a little bit more tame. And in the last couple months of warm weather that I have here, I want to actually move this tub outside so that I can get more direct sunlight and heat from outside to grow these plants as fast as I can before the winter season starts coming. So just to give you guys a little bit more history about this tub, I set it up maybe around 10 months ago and haven't really touched it, haven't removed plants or anything like that. So this is the growth that I got over 10 months. So I'm curious to see how things are going to change by adding dividers and putting it outside for more direct sunlight. I'll be sure to make updates as we go along to see how the growth and the progression of this tub goes. So be sure to subscribe if you want to see those videos in the future. And yeah, so I'll get a closer look at the tub. I'll show you guys what we're working with here, and then we'll get into the actual process to build one of these things for yourself. Okay guys, so this is a closer look of the tub. I'm just going to run through all the plants that we're working with here and give you guys a little bit more information on the substrate that we're going to be using and stuff. So first up in this corner, we have some hydrocotyl japonica. This stuff looks pretty stringy and kind of not so lush, and the reason why I think that is because it's been pretty low light conditions, so it kind of grew really bushy, and then I think choked itself out with the sunlight and kind of resulted in that. So hopefully redoing it will allow it to bounce back. And then coming over here a little bit more, we have some unknown stem plant. If you saw one of my previous videos, I have this in my aquarium. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but the immersed form definitely looks different than what it is in the aquarium, which is pretty typical for a lot of plants. Coming down over here, we have a pretty lush carpet of dwarf baby tears. Again, it kind of grew up and choked itself out, so hopefully when we redo it, we can get more of a lush carpet going on down there. Okay, so it might be hard to tell in the way the camera is framed up right now, so I'll try and get a closer look, but there is dwarf hairgrass pretty much scattered throughout the entire tub. I did try and concentrate it around this area here, but as we know, dwarf hairgrass sends off a ton of runners, so there's just kind of a light sprinkling of dwarf hairgrass all over this tub, This is another reason why I want to add dividers and try and segregate the plants. I think it'll be a lot better if it's more organized that way. Up top here is actually pretty interesting. I put this in not knowing how I was going to do. This is actually Christmas moss, but in the low light setting that it was, it just kind of grew up straight. Didn't branch off like Christmas moss usually does. So I'm curious to see how, if I put that into an aquarium, how it would bounce back. But for now, we're just gonna keep it in the Emersed setup. And in the back corner over here, if I can move some of the hydrocotyl japonica that has spread basically from this corner all the way over here, I do have some Java ferns growing Emersed. They kept kind of low growing. Keep in mind that this side of the tub here was closest to the window, as you can see by the hydrocotyl japonica moving over to that side. But yeah, I have some Java ferns down there. They seem to be doing pretty well. A closer look later on, we'll see if it actually spread or if it's just the same plants I put in there. Beside that, we have a crypt species. This is actually Crypt pechi. I put 1 or 2 plants around here, but as you can see, they must have spread because there's plants kind of all around the tub here. So that's pretty exciting because that was one of the plants that I really wanted to spread. Down here, closer to the soil, you can see quite a few different Anubias plants. This is either Anubias inana and Anubias inana petite, because those are the only Anubias plants that I've had in the past. So they've kind of mixed together over the years, but nevertheless, they're doing pretty well down there. And last but not least, one of the most recent plants that I got is Micranthum Monte Carlo. So I put most of that into the aquarium, but I had a few little clippings that I wanted to put in the tub, and they're doing not as great as I was hoping. So hopefully we can establish another little carpet of the Monte Carlo in our upcoming build of the Emersed setup. So next up, I'm going to start removing plants from the Emersed setup. I'm going to separate them, and then we're going to take down the soil, and I'm going to show you how I rebuild that. So stay tuned. Alright, so the beautiful thing about growing plants Emersed is that when I'm removing them from this setup, it's not crucial that I get all the root structures and everything like that, because plants will actually respond really quickly to being grown Emersed. In fact, even with like the stem plants, all you need is really a couple stems, and they'll be able to shoot off roots off of that and spread. So I'm not too worried about getting all the root structures. I'll try my best, but for the most part, these plants I know will respond pretty quickly to being replanted, which is great. Alright guys, so this is the final haul that we're going to use on our upcoming Emersed plant grow out tub. As you can see, we have quite a few plants of Java fern, a couple sprigs of dwarf hairgrass, but I'm confident that this stuff's going to spread like crazy, so I'm not going to start with a whole lot to begin with. Dwarf baby tears over here, hydrocotyl japonica, unnamed stem plant, I'm not 100% sure what that is. Then we have Micranthum Monte Carlo, Cryptocoryne pechi, and then we have variety of Anubias species. So a couple other plants that we're going to add in the future. I know I mentioned that I had Christmas moths in the previous Emersed setup, but that was just covered in dwarf hairgrass and it didn't look that healthy, so I think instead I'm going to collect some from my aquarium beside me, and I'm going to add that to the tub, and we'll use that for our Christmas moss. Another plant that I played around with a little bit in an Emersed setup before is Pelea moss, which that's what it was sold to me as. I'm not 100% convinced that it's Pelea moss. It could also be Subwassertang. I'm not 100% sure, but I know that I was actually able to grow that in the past in a previous Emersed setup. So I have a little bit with me today, so I'm going to add that to our next Emersed setup, and I'll keep you guys updated on how that actually turns out. So next up, I'm just going to, off camera, I'm going to clean up the plastic tub and throw out all the old soil, and then I'll show you guys how to set it up. It's pretty simple from here, so stay tuned. Alright, so for soil, as you can see, I'm not using anything fancy. just using some black earth topsoil. You can get this at pretty much any grocery store, Walmart, anything like that, especially during the summer when they have the garden centers on. Main thing here is that it's cheap. Not in the market to buy any kind of fancy soils with fertilizers and stuff like that. I found that just the plain stuff, the stuff that costs $1 a bag, is perfect for this project. So I'm going to add some of this into the tub. Now, one thing I did notice with the cheap soils is that there can be sticks and other stuff in it that you can take out if you want. In the previous setup that you guys just saw, I think I remember myself spending some time picking out little twigs and stuff like that, but I really don't think that's necessary, so I'm not going to do this on this next one. I'm just trying to do this quick and get it done, so perfection is not what we're aiming for here. So yeah, let's add some soil to the tub. I'm going to aim for maybe around an inch, maybe a little less than an inch. We'll see. I'm just going to spend some time and break up all the clumps. The soil's been sitting in the bag for quite a while, so it's not the nicest to work with, but as you can see, there's sticks and stuff like that. You can take that out if you feel like it, but or in my case, little bits of plastic bag. I don't know how that got in there, but we'll take that one out. So before we get to planting, we're actually going to prep this soil a little bit. And pretty much what that means is just I'm going to spray it like crazy. Get the soil nice and damp and saturated with water. This will make the planting a lot easier, and it'll also put some moisture into the soil, and so you don't need to water it as often. Alright, and there we have it. I added a little bit more water off camera, and I think we have a pretty good consistency, so now we can get on to planting. Alright, so before we get planting, I mentioned earlier that we're going to build some dividers for our plants. So I'm just going to take an X-Acto knife here, and I'm going to cut off the bottom of the container here, and I think probably go up about an inch, inch and a half, and I'm going to divide the container in half, and so this will give me two circular cylinders pretty much that I can punch into the soil. The idea is that the plastic walls here will prevent the roots from spreading out and will act as a little bit of a barrier to isolate the plants. So we'll start by inserting our dividers where we want the plants. Alright, and the fourth one is in. Now quickly, I just want to explain the reason why we cut the bottoms off of these is just so any moisture that's underneath the soil can access each container. Otherwise, if you just had small little containers with soil and growing them, you'll have to water each one individually. This way we can just spray this entire tub maybe once every couple days, depending on how heavy you spray it, and then any moisture will be shared between all the tubs. But the downside of this is I'm sure that eventually some dwarf hairgrass runners will get underneath and it will spread, but as long as you're maintaining this, plucking and pruning plants as you need, I am confident that these containers will do a good job separating the plants. Alright, so in this one over here, I think I'm going to do the dwarf baby tears. All you really have to do to plant the dwarf baby tears is just separate it as much as you can with your hands, and then just lay it on top and press it into the soil. So what'll happen is the little stems of the dwarf baby tears will touch the soil, and this will stimulate the plant to send out roots, and then the roots will go down into the soil, and then new shoots will come up with the leaves, and then after hopefully a couple days maybe a couple weeks, you'll see that this will start to carpet and the leaves will start to point upwards and it'll look like a traditional dwarf baby tears carpet. So I'll add 1 or 2 more little bundles of plants and then I think that should be good. So dwarf baby tears done. Next up we'll do the Monte Carlo. Now the Monte Carlo is going to be pretty simple. I only have a few little sprigs of it, but I'm confident it will eventually take off. And yeah, all they really have to do is be touching the soil for the roots to make its way down into the soil, and then the plant will send new leaves upwards. Next up, we will plant the dwarf hairgrass in this container over here. So I've got my bundle here. I'm just going to separate it out just as you would plant dwarf hairgrass in an aquarium. And I'm going to use my forceps for these guys and plant them into the substrate. Alright, and there we have it. Alright, so in this last container here, we're going to add the hydrocotyl japonica that I have. I have a feeling this container is going to do absolutely nothing to stop it from spreading, seeing as it can just grow right over it. But we'll give it a shot anyways and see what happens. So the idea with this plant, similar to the dwarf baby tears, there's really no roots on the section that I grabbed. So I'm just going to take some areas that have some pretty good leaves on it and push it into the soil, and hopefully it'll establish itself and put out some more leaves. Alright, so that should be good with the hydrocotyl, but I kind of want more of this plant to grow, so I'm actually going to plant this corner over here with it, seeing as I'm pretty confident that it's going to grow out of that container anyways. Okay, so in the center of the tub here, I'm going to plant the cryptocoryne pechi that I have. So next up, we're going to do the Anubia species that I have. As you guys can see here, I have a handful of Anubias. It's looking really healthy and really lush, and so hopefully we can propagate these plants and grow some more in the future in this tub. So I'm just going to start one by one, and I think we're going to focus them on this side of the tub here. I find the Anubias is actually a pretty easy plant to plant in these immersed tubs, because all you really have to do is set the roots down on the substrate and kind of push them down a little bit. Alright, so next up is the Java fern. This is a very similar planting as the Anubias that we just showed. So I'm going to try and concentrate the Java fern here on the side, just so that we can plant some of the moss in the middle of the tub with the crypts. So this is super simple. All you have to do is really just press it into the substrate, and within a couple days it'll establish and start sending out its own roots. Alright, so here's a little bundle of Christmas moss that I just pulled out of my aquarium. The moss itself isn't looking too great. I've been having a little bit of trouble keeping it looking lush, but I'm able to spare a little portion like this. We'll add it to the immersed setup and we'll see what happens. After this, I'm also going to show you guys some of the Pellia moss / Subwassertang, not sure which one it is, and we'll put that one in as well. Alright, so we got a little portion pressed into the soil there. Next up, I'm going to grab that Subwassertang. Okay, so here's a little handful of the Pellia moss / Subwassertang, whichever one it is. I've had some experience growing this in a immersed setup. I know it does pretty well. So we'll add this one into the one that we're making here, and I'll keep you guys updated on how it grows. So I'm just going to add it beside the Christmas moss here. Nice and lightly, just push it into the soil. So I'm going to give it one last spray, get everything nice and saturated with water. After all, these are aquatic plants, they need to be kept in high humidity. Behind the tub here I have the lid, so this is going to be covered with the lid that came with the tub when I bought it. If you have a tub that doesn't have a lid, I've also had success using saran wrap, just covering the top. The main thing is that you do want this covered so that the humidity can stay high in here for these plants. Alright, and there you guys have it, my immersed plant setup. This is super fun to do. I encourage all of you guys to set one up if you don't already have one set up. I'm sure all of you guys have a plastic tote that you can spare some soil and some extra plant clippings from your aquariums, and just set one out in front of your windowsill, and I'm sure you'll be happy with the progress from growing the plants. There's tons of benefits for having one of these things. I mentioned earlier you could do it for profit, but even if you plan on setting up aquariums in the future, it's great to have some plants at your fingertips that are ready to go. If you guys want to see updates on this plastic tote here, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll be coming out with updates so we can assess how the plants are growing in this tub here. If you like this video, please leave a like, comment down below if you have any questions, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.